Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're here with me today because, wow, we are unpacking something that literally has the power to fundamentally change how you interact with the world. Today, we're walking through this really powerful module from our source material, and it's called Learn to be Assertive Persistence. Now, it sounds pretty simple on the surface, right? But the text actually outlines a very specific, deliberate pathway from being quietly overlooked to taking confident, sustained action. We're going to really visualize exactly how that transformation happens.
Okay, let's dive into this chronological journey. We're going to cover 1. Breaking silent passivity. 2. Substituting verbal persistence. 3. Finding workable compromises. 4. Understanding the limits of being assertive. And 5. Creating habitual action.
All right, starting with step 1, breaking silent passivity.
So have you ever found yourself just defaulting to quiet acceptance when you absolutely knew you should speak up? You know the feeling, right? Like eating a completely wrong, freezing cold order at a restaurant just to avoid making a fuss. Well, that feeling of just swallowing your words, that's what the text calls silent passivity, and it's basically our baseline problem. It's that default mode where inaction completely takes over. So our goal here is a full system swap. We want to completely replace that inaction on the left with verbal persistence on the right.
Let's move to step 2 and see how this builds. Substituting verbal persistence.
The source material specifically talks about substituting verbal persistence for silent passivity. And I want to really pause on that, because assertiveness isn't just sitting there thinking brave thoughts, you know? It's a real mechanical skill that you practice. It means actually vocalizing your needs. Picture calmly repeating, "I cannot take on this extra project," to a super pushy coworker over and over. You are actively substituting your silence with your actual voice.
Which brings us to step 3, finding workable compromises. Now, what's really interesting here is that persistence absolutely does not mean blind stubbornness. You don't just stand there loudly repeating your demands and ignoring everyone else. True persistence requires finding a workable compromise. And the definition here is absolutely key. It's an accepted agreement that allows progress specifically while strictly maintaining your self-respect. It's an agreement that allows both sides to move forward without you having to sacrifice your core values.
Keep your self-respect. The source text tightly couples finding a compromise with this exact idea. This is honestly your ultimate metric for success. When you're navigating pushback, you've got to use your self-respect as a compass. If an agreement forces you to sacrifice your dignity, then by definition, it is unworkable. Your dignity literally must remain entirely intact.
Moving on to step 4, limits of being assertive. Ask yourself this direct question. Are there actually limits to assertiveness? I mean, it's super tempting to think that once you learn to be assertive, you should just apply it at maximum volume in every single situation. But the source material explicitly says no way. This module specifically teaches participants to recognize those exact limits.
So, the crucial point is that true assertiveness is highly self-aware. It requires knowing exactly when your persistence hits a boundary. Think about it. If your assertiveness starts infringing on someone else's rights, like demanding an immediate answer when they explicitly told you they need time to think, it completely backfires. Recognizing these limits isn't a weakness at all. It's a core competency. You really have to know when to push, and honestly, just as importantly, when to stop.
And that leads us to our final stop, step 5, creating habitual action.
And this brilliantly illustrates how all these individual skills fuse together into a progression. First, you replace silence with verbal persistence. Second, you navigate pushback to find those workable compromises. Third, you recognize your situational limits. And finally, habitual action. This cements everything. This is what wires those difficult, conscious choices right into your baseline everyday behavior. I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought. Think about your own day-to-day life. What happens when persistence becomes your default state? The module suggests that habitual action is the ultimate goal here. Just imagine if breaking silent passivity wasn't a daily internal battle anymore. Imagine if advocating for your self-respect, communicating persistently, and recognizing boundaries wasn't some forced choice, but simply an automatic habit. It's just the way you naturally operate. That is the true power of this path. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring how you can turn these active choices into your very own habitual actions.